Okay, so the distance our runner ran is 40 feet. The time it took to run that far, the time was 3 seconds. It says find the rate of speed. So do we know the rate? No, we do not. Okay, remember here's our equation, our formula for distance. It never changes. Nope, squeeze out. So distance is always equal to rate times time. Let's plug in what we know. Do we know the distance?
Yes.
What is it? Say it.
40.
40 what? Feet. Now, always keep your units with your numbers so you don't get mixed up. 40 feet. Distance is equal to the rate. Do we know the rate?
No.
No, so what do I write?
R.
An R. This means times time. Do I know time?
Yes.
I do. How much time?
3 seconds.
3 seconds. Okay, if I'm solving for the rate, what do I have to do, Juanita?
You have to cross out, you have to put like a 9
Mm-hmm.
and put 3 seconds on the bottom, cross out the 3, and then cross the second.
Yeah, I need to cancel 3 seconds, so I need to divide by it. 3 seconds. But whatever I do here, I have to do here. Just like a fraction, just like a ratio. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Now, since I'm dividing by 3 seconds here, there are 2 3's. There's a 3 in the numerator and the denominator, so they cancel. Seconds in the numerator and in the denominator, so they cancel as well. Now, what I'm left with is that the rate is by itself, and it's equal to what? 40 feet over 3 seconds. That means it took 3 seconds to go 40 feet. Right? Now, let's use our calculator to find out 40 divided by 3. And you get a whole lot of 3's out of after the decimal, right? So let's round to the nearest 10th place. 10th place. Okay? If I round to the nearest 10th place, 40 divided by 3 is what, Coral?
40 divided by 3 is 13.3.
Because if you're rounding to the 10th place, you only have one number after the decimal. This is the 10th place. And why is it 13.3 and not 13.4, Alexa?
Because remember like 4 and below is
Because this number here next to the 10th place is not 5 or more. It's less. It's 4 or less, right? 3. So this number does not change. Okay? Now, I took care of my numbers. I still have some units I need to attach to my answer. So the rate is 13.3 what, Darlie?
feet over seconds?
Feet per second. Just like you have it written here, feet per second. Okay? And of course we need to box our answer. Question?
Where do you get the 40 and the seconds?
This morning, one of my students, okay, we had to come up with numbers for this problem. So one of my students walked from the bookshelf to the door. She did it in 7 seconds. And then one of my students ran from the bookshelf to the door. They did that in 3 seconds. That's where we got the numbers. Okay? Yeah, that's why I wrote them here and they weren't written for you. Okay, go ahead and turn the page to 114. 114. Chris Johnson ran the 40-yard dash in 4.24 seconds. What is the rate of speed? Round any answer to the nearest hundredth. Okay, well, the first step is always to write what we know. Do we know the distance? How far?
40
40 yards. Do we know the rate?
No.
No. It says what is the rate of speed? So we don't know it, right? And do we know the amount of time?
Yes.
Yes. How long? 4.24 seconds. Good. Now we need to plug it in, right? We said we had a distance. What is it? And that's equal to the rate. What's the rate? We don't know, right? So we leave it as R. That means times. The T stands for what? Time. And what's the time in this problem? 4.24 seconds. Okay, I do need to get whatever variable I'm solving for by itself. In this case, it's the R for rate. Right now, we have this 4.24 seconds hanging around. We need to get it away from our R. How do I do that, Hillary? It's okay. Okay. Who can explain to me what I need to do to cancel these units? Alexa. I divide. Guys, when I write as a fraction, I'm dividing. I'm dividing this side by, what goes on the bottom, Alexa? Whatever I want to get rid of, right? 4.24, 4.24. Seconds and seconds. This is because, for example, if I have 5/5, what does that equal? 1. Does 1 change whatever number you multiply by? No. So that's why you can cancel units that way. The catch is, whatever I do to this side, I have to do to the other side. Make sure you're writing your units, not just numbers. Not yet, Kai, someone's out. So now, we have the rate by itself, right? The rate is equal to what?
40 yards over
What's the next step? Kai, and then Amaya, and then Alma. What's the next step? Hillary. Yeah, I gotta take care of these numbers, right? Remember, fractions are division. So, 40 divided by 4.24, and I get another big, long decimal. Well, the problem tells us this time, round to the nearest hundredth. If I round to the nearest hundredth, how many numbers come after the decimal? Isaac Lopez. Yes, 2, because this is the tenths place, this is the hundredths place. So if I round to the hundredths, what is my answer? Alice. 9.43. And is it seconds? Yards per second. Remember that if you're looking for a rate, you're going to have a distance per some time. Okay? And of course, we need to box our answer. Now, Braulio, why is it 9.43 and not 9.44? It's not higher than 5. What is not higher than 5? Because what? Yeah, because 9.43, well, here's the hundredths place. This 3 is less than 5, so it doesn't affect the 1 in the hundredths place. We keep it like it is, 9.43. Good job. Okay, let's talk about part 2. This part's a little bit different, but it makes a really good point, okay? It's going to show us something pretty cool, actually. So, In part 2, all right, in lesson 21, we converted units of measure using unit rates. If the runner were able to run at a constant rate, they're talking about the runner in part 1, okay, how many yards would he run an hour? Well, what rate do we have? We have yards per second, 9.43 yards per second. We're going to figure out how many yards he runs in an hour. Now, because I don't know how many seconds are in an hour right off the top of my head, I'm going to convert to minutes first. We do that by multiplying by the unit rate of the conversion factor. That sounds crazy, right? Here's all that means. There are 60 seconds in 1 minute. How do I write that as a unit rate? Juanita?
In a unit rate?
Which just means you want a 1. We already have that. So, yes, Alexa.
60 seconds.
Sure, that's the rate. Okay, 60 seconds per minute. If I'm going to talk about just the unit rate, then it's just the number, right? The unit rate is just the number in your rate. The number in our rate is 60. Now, because seconds is on the bottom here, and we want to get rid of seconds and end up with minutes, we're going to write seconds on top and minutes on the bottom, right? 60 seconds in 1 minute. That's why I didn't write it like this. You could write 1 minute in 60 seconds, but if seconds were both denominators, they would not cancel. So I wrote it the other way because I'm still representing that there are 60 seconds in a minute, and now there's seconds in the denominator and seconds in the numerator, so they can cancel. We can cancel those out. Now, what am I left with? I'm left with yards per minute. All I have to do now is deal with the numbers. Let's multiply across. What do I multiply first? 9.43 times 60, because you can imagine that this is over 1. Any whole number you have, you treat like a numerator, because you can always just put it over 1. And we get 565.8. What's the unit on top? Yards. Good. And what's the unit on bottom? Minutes. We got rid of seconds because it asked how many yards in a minute. So our rate of yards per minute is 565.8 yards per minute. Now that we've converted to minutes, we can convert to hours. So these rates are equivalent. These rates are equivalent because 1 minute is equal to 60 seconds, and that's what we multiplied by. Okay? Let's talk about minutes to hours. So we're starting with 565.8 yards per minute. What do we know about minutes and hours? Yes, ma'am.
There are 60 minutes in an hour.
There are 60 minutes in 1 hour. I'm going to multiply by the unit rate of our conversion factor. So what goes on top of my fraction? I want to get rid of what? Say it. Minutes, because I want I want my answer in hours. Good. So what needs to go on top? Minutes. Good. Because it's in the denominator here, I want it in the numerator here, so I can cancel it. So 60 minutes in 1 hour. Now I just need to multiply across. Well, first I can cancel these two units because they're the same, and one's in the numerator and one's in the denominator. Now I can just multiply across. What should I multiply, Darlie?
56.58.
565.8
565.8
times.
times 1 hour.
Well, remember that a whole number you can just put over 1. So you treat whole numbers as a numerator. And when you multiply across, you multiply the numerator times the numerator. So, times 60. Good. And you get 33,948 what? Good. Yards per hour. If you forgot what units you're working with, you just go back to your equation and you see what's left. You have yards and hours. Yards and hours. Okay, so there's your rate for yards per hour. Now look back at what we've done. This is kind of a lot of work. Now we can do this and find the correct answer in one step instead of 2 long steps. Let me show you how, okay? We can multiply yards per second, so the rate we started with was yards per second, by seconds per minute, and then by minutes per hour. So let's talk about it. What was the rate we started with? The yards per second rate was what, Alexa? Nope. Hillary.
9.43 yards per second.
Yes, we started with 9.43 yards per second, okay? Now, we want to cancel out seconds because we want minutes, not seconds. So we write 60 seconds in a minute, where seconds is on top, so that the denominator and the numerator cancel. Now we have yards per minute. And again, we're converting to hours. So we're going to write 60 minutes in an hour, where minutes is on top, so that the numerator and the denominator cancel. We're left with yards to hours, or yards in an hour. Okay? All we have to do now is multiply across. So we do 9.43 times 60 times 60. And you get the same answer, 33,948 yards in 1 hour. Yes, sir.
What happens if you get one of them problems wrong and you get a different answer?
What do you mean? Oh, like if you got one of these wrong, like if you got this wrong, then if I graded your paper and you got this wrong, I would just look to see if you got the rest right with the number you used. So you'd get this one wrong, but as long as you did the math correctly from there on, you would get this one right. Okay? Good question. Because there are a lot of test questions and exit ticket questions that build on each other like that. Good question. Okay, part 3. How many miles did the runner travel in that hour? Well, we have our answer in what? What distance measurement? Arlene? Yards. We know that in that hour we went 33,948 yards. We want to know miles. What do we know about yards and miles? Does anybody know? I can tell you if you don't know. If you do know yards and miles, Juanita?
There's a certain amount of miles and yards, but I don't know that number.
Hillary?
There's 3 feet in a yard?
No, we're looking at yards and miles. Isaac?
Like 3,000?
No, okay. In 1 mile, there are 1,760 yards. Okay, so we're going to multiply by the unit rate of our conversion factor. Okay. First, we need to decide what's going to go on top, what's going to go on bottom. Kai, do you know? Okay. Can we talk about it in just a moment? Okay, what goes on the top, Abram? What goes on the top in our formula? Why? It's bigger.
Well, it's not bigger, but like it's.
Now I could write it like this, and it would still tell me that in 1 mile there are 1,760 yards. So why am I choosing to write 1 mile on top? It does matter. Why, Nathaniel?
Because that's the distance.
Miles and yards are both distances. Juanita?
Because it's telling you how many miles are in 1 yard.
Well, yes, but so would this. So would this. So why am I writing miles on top? Braulio. Yeah, but writing it this way tells me that too. Why is it important that I wrote miles on top of Maya? Yes, because I want to cancel this unit, yards. I treat any whole number as a numerator because you have an imaginary 1 as your denominator. So when you multiply across, you can first cancel yards because it's in the numerator here and the denominator here. So what unit are you left with? Say it? Miles, right? So let's go ahead and multiply across. What do I multiply first? 33,948 times 1 what? Times 1 what?
1 mile.
1 mile, right? So 33,948 miles. What's on the bottom? What am I multiplying? Gabriel. We don't have minutes in this one. What am I multiplying? Isaac Lopez. Yeah, by just 1, right? So 1,760. Why am I not writing yards here? We've canceled that unit. Yards are gone. We have miles left. We wrote our ratio, our unit rate, with miles on top because yards was on top here. So if we put yards on the bottom here, they cancel and we get miles. That's what we want in our answer. We want miles. How many miles? So how do I solve this problem? How do I solve this problem? Adam? Adam, what do I do next? Turn and talk with your partner. Discuss what we do next. Okay, bring it back in 3, 2, and 1. Now, who thinks they know the next step? What is it, Arlene? Right, because this is a fraction we ended up with. Fractions are division. Now we have a lot of decimals. The question says, though, to round to the nearest tenth. So how many numbers do we want after the decimal in our answer, Abram?
3 numbers?
Nearest tenth? Look at the board. Look at the board where I drew. How many am I at? Just one, right? This is the tenths. Yes. Oh. Yes, so you would be right. 3 numbers total. But yes, just one after the decimal, because the one after the decimal is the tenths place. So, if I'm rounding to the tenths place, what would my answer be? Amanda, you know.
19.2?
19 point. April? 19.3. Now, why is it 3 and not 2? Well, how did you round it? Ooh, sorry. Oops. Okay, because we're rounding to this number, we look at the one next door. It's more than 5, so this one has to go up. It has to round up to 19.3. Now, we do have a unit left. What unit is attached to our number? Miles. And we can go back to our question and see, oh, how many miles? 19.3 miles. Yes, I answered the question logically. Now, go ahead and turn the page to 115. These questions are very, very similar to the ones we've just done. You're going to work with your partner on exercise 1. You may move on to exercise 2 when you're finished. Now, track me. Waiting on a few. Waiting on a few. Okay. You may move on to exercise 2 when you're done with number 1. Here's what I'm looking for. I'm walking around the room. I'm looking for. You are writing what you know, which means distance is what? Rate is what? Time is what? And then you must plug it in to the equation. Do not do any math operations with your calculator or written out anything at all until you've plugged in what numbers go in your equation. Okay? If you do not do that, I promise you, you will get confused once you get to the problem set where they haven't set this up for you and you have to do it yourself. So get into the habit of filling in the equation with what you know. That will tell you whether you need to multiply or divide. Go ahead.